So hello everyone, welcome to one more cycle of our internship program from Kalki, right? And specifically welcome to Cybership Internship Program, where for the next 6 weeks we'll be talking about different interesting topics, which is there in cybersecurity in the currently in the job market, right? One of the main motivations for us to get into this kind of internship program is that there's a lot of questions from the students or general public want to say what is that need to be studied, and one more question they have to answer is that is it, are they ready to, is it what they want to do? All right, so usually they'll get a lot of information about when they want to do development. There are a lot of people talking about what is going to be your roadmap to be a good developer, but we are seeing that there is a very less roadmap when it comes to talking about cybersecurity. One of the main reasons for me to get into cybersecurity training in recent times, for the last 1 year, I've been in Kalki doing cybersecurity training. For me to getting into cybersecurity training is because I found when I was working, when I'm in my organization, when I'm trying to hire candidates, I was not getting any kind of good quality candidates. Right? It's not that the candidates were dumb or not technically challenged or anything. They were very good candidates, but did not know where to start and what has to be focused on. Right. So that was the thing. The main reason is we interviewed more than 700 students and candidates for about 2 to 3 open position, and in that we could only shortlist about 50 candidates, and in that 50 candidates we ended up taking only 2 candidates, because since so many less candidates in the cybersecurity, even after shortlisting them, we could not afford the salary because we offer them and someone is able to outbid our salary, and then they were poached from our hands. So that is a scenario out there. But main thing is, in the process, whenever I had an interview with the candidates, in the end, there's a good chance there's a lot of candidates would ask, what did I do? How did I was my interview process and things. I would give them an honest reply where they messed up and everything, and they would tell, uh, I did not know this is what I'm supposed to study. I've been going in an entirely opposite direction because the YouTube videos and blogs and talks about a different set of topics when it comes to cybersecurity. Right? They were not aware, predominantly talking about web application. A lot of times when you see a lot of certifications, you don't see web application. We talk more about infrastructure security. And even the best certifications like OSCP, which is the one, holy grail for ethical hackers, it also focuses more on infrastructure security rather than web application. Right. So then that was the main reason we're getting into this. And again, when we are looking at the candidates, when we are interacting with students who are interested, they are a bit reluctant. The main reason is they don't know what is that they are getting into. Right. So main reason for the internship program is to make you aware what is there in the industry standard, what is the demand in the industry, and what are the topics that you could focus on, what is that we are catering as an intern, right? And also, it is also going to make you an introduction to cybersecurity, right? To be frank, a lot of topics what we study out here, it is not introduction, it is something related to an intermediate level, right? And just if I'm telling intermediate, don't get worry that it is too complex or anything. The way the structured way the internship program, every week we are having, it is in a linear approach. Right. So this is the day one. We will be talking about, we are going to get your toe step, wet in the cybersecurity. We are going to introduce what is the cybersecurity is about. A lot of people will not know about that. Right. So we'll make you understand what is cybersecurity. And once you do that part, there is an other constant process that comes with that. Right. So we do divide it into 4 subsections, right? Technically speaking, the week one is basically about introduction. We are not going much, we are going to be technical, but not hands-on kind of a thing. And week 2, we'll talk about what is the role of a penetration tester or ethical hacker, and what do you mean by infrastructure security, right? When you see an organization, how to secure that using ethical hacking as a process. We're going to talk about that. And the third part is going to be DevOps part, DevSecOps, how to introduce security in a DevOps environment, how to make security part of the design philosophy as well, how to introduce software in this SDLC, software development cycle, right? How to do security in software development cycle. That we are going to talk about. And in the fourth week, right? It is not technically fourth week. The fourth section is going to be cloud security, where we are going to talk about how cloud is different from traditional on-premise infrastructure and how can we make it more secure, right? So again, in the intermediate weeks after week 2 and week 3 and week 4, we do have practical sessions in that where hands-on sessions are there, where we'll discuss about how do you configure a firewall in a make it more secure. How do we configure an SSH, how do you, in firewall, there's a lot of basic requirements that you need to understand, which is common for all firewalls, right? So that is going to be taken care of. And from a DevOps perspective and a web application perspective, we will talk about, security, session management, how once you log in and log out, what is that happening out there? So there's a lot of topics that we'll be covering as well from a practical perspective. So that is the flow. And this is the week 1 that we're going to start off with. Yeah. So before we could continue, if anyone has any questions, please feel to ask now. And in the middle of the session also, you can stop me and ask me if you have any questions in that case.
Apologies, sir. I have a question. Are the sessions going to be?
I'm not able to hear you.
Come again. Okay. I was asking if the session is going to be recorded.
Yes. Yes, the session is going to be recorded. Yes. I think someone was asking whether there will be a certificate issued at the end of the completing all the sessions. I think Devasis sir can answer that. Just give me a second.
Certificate will be issued, but we are for this batch, after the course completions, you need to attend 4 or 5 MCQ and not MCQ, a mock interview kind of thing in our website, a small task related thing. Just check how good you are. It is not like the certificate is not going to depend on your result, but yes, you need to complete all of those tasks, then only your certificate will be generated. We'll create a short small video. We are going to share how to generate your certificate within before, I think, next week this time. So this session will continue for 7 weeks, and after that you can attend those tasks and tickets or mock interview kind of thing. You can take multiple time those exams. There are will be like 20 things, but you can only attend 4 or 5 for the certificate. Rest you based on your will. Okay. So in nutshell, the answer will be yes.
Okay. So let's continue. So the question always arises, what is a cyber attack and what is a cybersecurity, right? So that is what we are going to be focused more on. How do you prevent yourself from a cyber attack? That's the main agenda of it. So there's a lot of things that comes into play. Cybersecurity is more like a onion, right? Which would be an ideal analogy to tell. It has many layers, and meaning anything that we want to secure, you will have multiple layers of security to that, right? It could be at an infrastructure level, firewall, WAF is there. Some cases even load balancers also will have some security feature enabled. and there's a lot of things that comes in, right? All those things is going to be there. We are going to, but does not make sense if you are starting in cybersecurity. Let's understand basically what basically cybersecurity of cyber attack is, right? A cyber attack is an intentional effort to steal, expose, alter, disable, or destroy data, application, other assets to unauthorized access to computer networks, computer systems, and digital devices. So technically speaking, here a cyber attack deals with attacking any resource that is available on a digital entity, right? Digital entity could be a server, it could be your laptop, it could be a mobile phone, or it could be anything of them, even your iPad and other devices that is there. So that is where cybersecurity is there. Basically talks about stealing your data, using your data, right, or altering your data as well comes into the play here, right? So you might have seen, right, the impact of cybersecurity is becoming more and more dangerous. One of the major top breaches we have seen in recent times is AT&T data breach, which affected about 73 million users. Their official numbers, it tells 51, but it is unofficial number is about 73. This particular breach happened in 2019 and it was only disclosed recently, right? It is not something like that. And in 2021, LinkedIn also got breached, about 700 million users. Means about 93% all, LinkedIn members were affected because of this. That is also there. And in 2021, Microsoft was also attacked, Office 365. Here, it is not number of people or users got affected, it is number of organizations that was affected by this. More than 30,000 organizations were affected by this. T-Mobile, 48 million. And Equifax is probably one of the biggest, exposures of the breach. Here, credit related information about half of US population, including their social security number, was breached out there, right? And it was something which could have averted. This is a pure negligence from them, right? The impact of this is going to be for a lot of people. You may not see it directly, uh, especially from a banking perspective. A lot of people lose money on a daily basis. Banks are only organizations where we see they don't have to disclose when they lose money to an online threat or an hackers can steal money out of bank. They don't have to breach. They have to report it to the uh, security agencies, but it is not mandatory to disclose it publicly, right? And this is not something, the data breach. You will see here a lot of things is happening or big companies. And if you think you're a small company or a medium company, hackers are not going to target you. And that is not the case, right? Especially when I have worked on more than 350 engagements, and a lot of that engagements will come up because this organization got breached, right? They got hacked and things like that. So it is, everyone need to take security on a serious note out here. It has happened in real time. A lot of companies have existed on Friday, but on Monday did not exist, mainly because their complete infrastructure was deleted by hackers over the weekend. Right. So they lost everything. They lost customer information. They lost data and everything that has happened in real time as well. So what is the difference? I'm getting an echo for my voice. Yes. So what is that I'm talking about? So that, what is that I'm talking about? Karthik is talking about breach, and he's talking about incident, and what exactly is this part, right? So let's say there's a website, someone is trying to, let's say there's a website like apple.com or Google or anything. It is going to be very common for them. They're going to daily, they are going to be, someone is going to try to hack their website, right? So their confidentiality, their integrity and availability, maybe someone is trying to compromise that. Whenever will someone try to do an attack on the target, that is called an event. But in event, someone has tried, but nothing happened, right? For instance, we can tell that someone tried to break open my door. Some thief came in to break open my door, but they could not do anything about that. Right. So in that case, it is an even nothing was compromised. There was an attempt, but nothing went through. An incident is similar way. So what could happen here is that, let's say someone tried to break into the apartment, they were able to, bypass the, initial security process, and they're probably able to open your door as well, right? But they were able to not take away with any information or anything from their valuables from your house. So that is where an incident comes into play. Yes, sir. Someone raised a question.
Thank you, Mr. Karthik. I just wanted to ask, based on what you just mentioned just now in terms of breach and data
Mm,
security, or I recently saw that the UK government has actually I would say coerced, for the lack of a better word, Apple to remove their data encryption. So my question would be that what are the pros and cons of this in terms of penetration by hackers, in terms of doing whatever they
mm,
want to do on mobile phones? So and number two is that actually in breach of the, I'd say, the laws, in terms by
mm.
by the government exerting so much, but like seeing a contradiction in their laws, and at the same time when it comes to cybersecurity, issues and stuff like that.
Yes. Uh, so that is, it depends on, I have not gone through it to be talking about it, but usually what happens is that EU plays a very important role in cybersecurity. They take up a lot of things quite seriously, right? So their consideration for security and privacy of their citizens is paramount for them. Uh, from a security point of view, there again, one more thing is that there is some level of espionage that is going to happen at the state level in any major countries we are having right now. Okay. And when certain algorithm process that's going to be present out there, it makes it difficult for them to track the people in that country using that particular phone and things like that. That is also a plays a major role for that. So, but my question again is that, okay, UK government is telling that the encryption has not to be used out there. But what is the guarantee that Apple itself is not selling those data that belongs to it, right? So they may be telling, one of the main reasons why senior executive all over the world are provided with a MacBook and an iPhone is they are much more secure than when it comes to an Android or an Windows laptop, right? In the Windows laptop process, we see ThinkPads is only thing that is given because they emphasize a lot on the encryption process for them. So that is the main concern on there. But at the same time, it will be our responsibility as users not to have too much digital footprint on any one device. And there could be multiple ways for someone to get in that, right? That is there. Companies and state players will always try to impose such kind of a laws on your. They can not only forget about having it on iPhone as well. They can do impose similar laws on your service provider as well, right? If you're in from UK, Orange is there, Three is there, telephone providers for data providers, Virgin and things, asking them to, share the data information. They might take up metadata, and it becomes quite amount of information you can derive from a metadata is quite high. I can track how much time you have spent in a particular point. I know what is your, I can do data analytics of it and find out what is your pattern, how long you stay, are you going to go to some particular place on this weekend or not, and what kind of things that you're going to do as well. All right, so those are things that could be easily done. I would, try to, it is going to be there, but there is no guarantee that any company which is holding on to your data, they're going to keep it in a safe place as well. They could be selling it in a one way or the other place to their competitors. Because why
No,
is that? Yeah, please.
no, 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 no. Continue, continue.
Yeah, so because why is that? Google pays billions of dollars to Apple just to put their search engine in an iPhone, right? Because what does Google harvest? End of the day, it is harvesting your personal data to make, they will tell they're using it to make this search better, but also they're also placing their ads that they're having information about you. So that is the reason for that. So we cannot trust anyone.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So let's come back here, right? From an event and incident perspective, as we spoke, an event is an attempt, but no success whatsoever. An incident is some kind of a they're able to compromise some security features and able to get in the organization, but no data loss, no confidentiality or integrity was compromised out there, right? That is what an incident is taken as considered. Whereas a breach is, there is some kind of a data loss that has happened out there, right? The hackers were able to compromise, they were able to get inside the server, either they were able to steal data or put some modify the existing data out there or delete the data as well, right? So that is what happens in a breach. So most of the time, when you see annual reports that are available out there, we'll see they'll talk about incident, events, and breach, and what kind of an information was stored out there. As a cybersecurity engineers, we're always focusing on reports that are available out there. And because it is a very good pointer to where the hackers are focusing more, right? What kind of if there is a social engineering attacks are risen in recent time, probably it is a good time to start training your company employees in the company for phishing attacks and look into that. And you can also check whether your network is how well it is protected against phishing attack and are you trained your employees on that, right? Or if there's some kind of some we'll see OWASP top 10 where we'll look at there's a change in the top 10 security vulnerabilities that is going to be plays an important role as well, right? So technically, so we talk about data that is compromised breach. What are the major types of attacks we see in generally, right? One of the basic ones we see is going to be web application attacks because that plays previously we were focused more on compromising servers and things, and that is what we see a lot of the ethical hacking courses are. They focus more on compromising the operating system on a server, but with the current emphasis that is given at a manufacturer level, then how to prevent if you're using an Ubuntu, if you're using a Red Hat and everything, amount of effort given by them to make sure their OS is secure and hackers cannot gain access, compromise the system. The attack surface on the server level has gone down significantly, right? But the attack surface on the web application is gone up significantly because the lack, probably the right way to tell about is that we'll get a lot of developers who are not aware of cybersecurity. So they will end up designing applications which are not secure, right? So it makes it quite easy for them to get inside an application, get the data and get out of it. So, and it is, let's say you're having a server, getting an access to the server is quite difficult nowadays because there is a firewall in play. There's a lot of things that is there. But if it is a web application, everyone in the world is supposed to access that because they have to work on it, right? They have to use the application for them to do. So by nature itself, it is exposed to everyone. So anyone can attack for that. So it makes it much more lucrative out there. And we are seeing the later trends nowadays is more towards phishing attacks, where you're getting mail, SMS, or WhatsApp chat where users can click on certain things and it affects the process out there. So it makes it a click on it, then it will take you to the fake. You can compromise their username and password out there. That is there. Denial of service attacks have become significantly more. There are a lot of appliances out there these days which are actually designed to prevent this kind of compare previously we used to see firewall is there and that was able to manage, but we are having a denial of service. So what do you mean by denial of service? Denial of service basically is overwhelming a public facing server with so many requests or so many, someone is trying to, so many people are accessing at the same time, it becomes difficult for it to respond back to everyone, it would crash, right? So I'm talking about millions and millions of packets being sent over in a short span of time to the servers out there. Nowadays they are better, but still it is quite easy for hackers to do so these days. The main reason is that they can create an EC2 instance using stolen credit card information, because if they use their own credit card and give their actual information, the DOS attack can be tracked back to the device and that device can show up, right? So they can use stolen card credit information, then use those cloud devices to do the attack out there, right? That is the main scenario what we have seen out there, right? And system intrusion, as I told, it's very less, and but again, the even if it is getting hacked, we will need a much more complex, we are seeing ransomware, malware attacks and things. Once it gets inside that system, it is able to show us. So try to get access into the system, but not via web application, but in a random way. Right? Usually this about looks about what are the other services running out there. Probably can I push some information on that? And let's say if it's a phishing mail, I click on a link and ransomware gets installed. All those things comes into play out here. Right. So what is an attack pattern? Right? What is that the trend that is happening in the system nowadays? Right. So if no one talks about incidents in, especially in small and medium scale businesses, mainly because they don't know there has been an incident. They don't know they have been hacked. Right. There was a situation in US, a company was hacked. They got to know that they have been breached. Right. There was an event out there, and they analyzed that option, and they got to know that breach had not taken place a couple of days back or few weeks back or few months back. It was actually breach which took place for 4 years before, right? And the hacker has been in the network coming and stealing data on a regular basis and go back enjoying, trying to sell their data, which he had been selling to the competitors, right? So, but what is the different incidents that we see, right? Because why it is important for us to look from a breach perspective, report from this perspective is that there will always be X number of possibilities are where an attack could take place. For us, it is important to know which is more priority to secure, right? So for instance, if you have at your home gold and silver ornaments, right? Which is going to be your priority one, and which is going to be a priority two, right? Probably you like to secure your gold ornaments first, and then the second priority is given to silver, and probably other things which are there. So there is a importance that is going to be there. And at the same time, in an organization, we need to know where the attack is coming from. So then we can prioritize defending those attack patterns, right? So that is reason very much important. For that incident wise, when we are seeing, we saw always has been a top is the denial of service. That has been very, very common these days. And it takes little bit to almost no technical requirement from the attacker out there, right? Especially on the dark web, you can by denial of service attacks, you can give the target to anyone and they will perform an attack on that part. So that has been quite common out there. Second one is privilege misuse. So let's say someone has been given some kind of an permissions in the organization, they might be misusing it, right? And with the current trend of zero trust, where anyone is not given any kind. Someone, I think someone's mic is not mute. So privilege misuse is you're not you're given a higher privilege than what is required, right? For instance, a manager is there and who is there for a manager for a particular area, but instead is able to view information for all the entire country database. So that is not there. Uh, This has gone down significantly nowadays. We don't see that happen because there is an introduction to concept called zero trust, where least privileges is given for any user. System intrusion is a system intrusion. System intrusion, we'll see it has picked up in recent times. Uh, but again, here the we will see in the later stages, it is mainly because at a social engineering level, it has been taken up as well. The main thing that we see is that also basic web application security. The problem here, what you're seeing is 2021, between 2021, there is a significant reduction in web application attacks because this is not tracking API security as well, right? So we have seen a reduction in web application and more towards an API. So there is distribution of attack vectors at that phase. So that is the reason where we see web application has gone down significantly. Social engineering has been similar, right? Phishing is what we do, and where uh, we have seen that kind of an impact that is happening out there, right? Remember, this is an incident. People are trying to do scans on the servers that is trying to get inside the system and things like that. That happens on a quite fun. Getting it to an uh, breach is different, right? That is a different scenario, and a lot of other things are also happening out here, right? The most important thing is that we need to see how to protect your organization as a DOS level, that is denial of service, how to secure your web application, and how to secure your process out there, right? And we could see also the breaches where the pattern of breach is quite common, right? System intrusions have been quite common, and the web application is also quite high as well. So majority of the attacks have been in these two phases. Social engineering, if you take a lot of social engineering is maybe actually a bit higher than what is been showcased here, mainly because a lot of the social engineering don't get reported. But when they happen, the impact is very high. Uh, there was a recent situation where we went to one of the organization. We were doing an incident response. What had happened was there was a sudden scare. Their mail ID, one of the employees' mail ID, was used to send a spam mail to a lot of customers, lot of their customers, and this is about hundreds and thousands of customers are getting a mail of them. So then we got to know, right? So that particular user had clicked on a link which was just come to his email, and because of he has lost, and that link forwarded him to a fake company login page, right? This was a dedicated attack, and it asked you to enter username and password without cross-checking the domain or anything. He entered the username and password, and they took that information and used that information to send spam mail to a lot of customers, right? And this is a medical company which collects information about patients and doctors and other things. So it is a critical breach out there for that, right? So those are the three main things that we'll see. Miscellaneous error and things like that, we see privilege misuse that does occur, but not to that, right? That is the stolen or lost assets. Basically, it's a managers are given laptops, right? So when they go out for client meeting and they're traveling managers, they're constantly interacting. They might lose their laptop in airports, or it could be in cafeterias and different meeting locations they could lose. Sometimes these attacks are done on purpose to steal the data inside the laptop. So the impact of this is less these days, mainly because you will see there is a minimum requirement is to encrypt your laptop, meaning someone can steal your data, steal your laptop. They can erase your data, right? They can erase your data and use the laptop or sell the laptop to anyone, but they will never be able to get a hold of your data, right? That is the main point of it. So that is why it's seen a significant less out there. So one of the main reasons why an Apple MacBook is given to managers is for the same, that It Your Apple devices predominantly come with a dedicated chip in them for encryption itself, right? So it will make sure it is going to be secure all the time. So sometimes you will have to enable it and cross check with that, right? So this is about breaches and attacks. So what do you mean by cybersecurity, right? So how do we protect this information is called cybersecurity, right? Protecting your network systems and real-time business need compression solution that is built them to protect this information, reputation, and continuity, right? There are situations, reputation also plays a major role in cybersecurity, right? Even though you might have lost only little amount of data or no data, if the incident about the attack goes public, you can have a significant loss, right? So for instance, Target was one of those companies, Target supermarket chain, they had breached, right? They got breached out there. The amount of money or data they lost in a breach was significantly less compared to the business loss they had. When that information got out that Target had been breached, amount of people shopping at Target goes down, took a nosedive. And the impact was so high, they had ended up firing a lot of people, closing a lot of stores, right? That is how the impact is going to be. So that is one of the things that reputation plays an important role, right? And continuity is also very important because someone deletes your data, you will not be able to continue with the information. So there's a lot of backup and things that also need to be considered here, right? So what is supposed to be secure, right? So what is considered as a breach is when confidentiality, availability, and integrity is compromised, right? So confidentiality is basically talks about data that can only viewed by the authorized users, right? If an unauthorized users is able to look out your data, it is called as a breach of security or breach of confidentiality. And integrity is as someone is able to make modification to your data, right? It could be, someone is able to send a mail on your behalf to someone, that is a breach of integrity, or they make modification to your personal information in a banking portal or in your own office location, change mobile phone, because changing the mobile phone number has a huge impact because of OTPs being sent to your mobile phone for authentication, right? And availability basically talks about the server or service that is there that should be available to all the users all the time. All right. So when they are not able to access it because someone has maliciously made any, actions that will prevent for that. So because this will also have a huge impact financially in certain situations. Let's say during my time when I was in UK, I was working with Amazon, not at a technical level. So I was part of their uh, packaging team. Whenever there's an order, when you get an order, there's some human being in the factory that is packing that and sending out to you. Amazon hires a lot of people, trains a lot of people for 1 month only. That is the month of December. Starts somewhere in the second week of November, goes all the way up to second week of January. Whatever the amount of products they sell in that time is bigger than the entire other 10 months they would sell. And in that particular one day will be there that is going to hit a peak. They will sell millions of products of that. So for that one, 60-day gap, they hire a lot and train them a lot for a couple of months because they start training around June, and by the time they come to December, they know they are working like a machine, right? And you're packing around 60 to 70 packets in an hour minimum, right? So that is how you're supposed to 1 minute, one packet you have to finish. So in this kind of a situation, let's say there's a DOS attack on Amazon server and Amazon goes down, right, for an entire day. What is going to be the loss in business for them, right? In the month of December, let's say the peak day that they're supposed to go, someone attacks this server and it compromises and no data is lost whatsoever. But people are not able to open Amazon and then to purchase it, right? Are people going to wait for the next day to purchase the product? Probably no. Since they are on the front of laptop, they're not able to access Amazon, and probably they'll go to some other website and book it out there, right? So this is what is important, right? Availability plays a critical role for that part, right? So that is how. I think you might have seen, I think a lot. That is the reason nowadays, even the sales nowadays is not, you'll see on online shopping, sales are going to be for a couple of days, not for a single day. Previously, they used to have one Black Friday sale on a particular day and do it. Nowadays, you'll see 3, 4 days it's spread out, mainly because something happens on one of the days, they can recover it in the second or third day as well. Because if it is there one single day, everyone is accessing the server on the same day. So it will break it. So no security breach. They themselves will not be able to afford it. Right. So that is there. And again, one more thing we need to understand is authentication and authorization. Right. Authentication is nothing but proving who you are. You're proving your identity for the system that is there. Right. For you may be using, entering your biometrics like your fingerprint scanner or face scanner to get inside your mobile phone, entering your username and password for accessing your email on Gmail or things like that. All those things where you're proving your identity, right? So basically here there are three types of authentication mechanism. So one is what you know, one is what you are, and what is the third is what you have, right? What you know is your username and password, and what you are is your biometrics, and what you have is nothing but a token, right? You might have an access card to get inside the company and for attendance things and all. So that are the authentication is. But authorization is goes to a next level of that, right? Authentication only a proof what is your identity is, but let's say authorization basically talks about what you have access for. In a medical, when we're testing, especially pen testing, ethical hacking, medical websites where patient information will be stored, one of the things we'll see is that a doctor who is already inside the organization, inside the hospital website, he has his own username and password. He gets inside that. But certain times you will not be able to view certain patients' information. Why? Because that doctor is not assigned as a doctor for a particular patient. So doctors who are not directly connected to the patients cannot view that, that patient's information. That is, no authorization is present out there. Right? He should be authorized when a doctor is added as a consultant, right? As a physician consultant for the particular patient, he is going to be authorized to access that particular patient information. So basically, authentication is proving yourself. Authorization is telling what you have access for. So that is the scenario of that. Okay. Before we could move further, anyone else is having any questions? Any questions, anyone?
Karthik, I have a question.
Yeah, Rakesh.
Yeah. So authentication and authorization, that's all role-based control, right? Access control.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you give us an example of a tool, or is that a process that we are using?
The process can be there. For instance, a role-based access control, uh, the authorization that is not going to be given to a ID, a role is going to be assigned for that user. For instance, let's say when you take up a cloud environment, or if you take any company organization, you will have a centralized user management system, right? There will be a super administrator, there will be an administrator, and things like that is going to be given out there. So because employees keep on coming in and leaving the organization, going out, so it becomes quite difficult to assign every time what is that they have authorized to do and things like that, right? So if you can take up in a simple sense is that much more simpler way we can look at is that, let's say we'll take up a call center. Okay. So let's assume you're a call center which you do for manage for providing support for laptops and desktops, right? It could be any major companies like Dell, Compaq, HP, and things like that who have that option with it. So here the call center executives are going to be divided into zones as well, right? So if you take something like a Dell, they will have a global presence out there and they will have a hotline number where that calls about them. So let's say there is a team that is being assigned for US market only, and there's going to be a manager out there. So they will have a shared common database, right? Only thing that is going to change is that it is going to be there. So let's say for each of every state, there is a role assigned for that. What they're going to do is that when a executive joins the team, instead of assigning him all the files that is going to be or resources that he can access, they are going to assign it to a particular role, right? So at that time, what happens is that it becomes easier. Let's say if that particular employee goes to a other, let's say moves from US to or Mexico or Canadian market, all they have previously, if you don't do it on a role-based access control, you have to remove all the permissions for that user and reapply fresh permissions from a Canadian market perspective, right? Because he's sitting in the same office and he's accessing in the same system, same location is there. It is just that his role changed,
Like a level 1
right?
engineer, level 2 engineer, they will all have the
Yes,
same.
yes, that's the thing, right? This is from a layman perspective. I'm telling about what do you mean by a role-based access control, right? So when you go from an administrative or technical perspective, there will be one super administrator in a cloud environment who will have access to a complete set of all the dashboard, all the resources that are available out there, right? Instead of creating a user and then giving him permission, we can create a role. So let's say there are about 5 technicians out there, and we can assign one person to be that super administrator, right? So now let's say if that person leaves or is been moved to other department, I don't have to manually go and tell, okay, Karthik is the administrator for this. He had control of 5 different servers. So let me remove the permission for that servers one by one from his account, right? Then again, when he moves to the newer team, then again reassign those permissions for different servers out there, right? So instead of doing that, let's say we'll take a virtual entity as a role, okay? And what we are going to do, we are going to assign the permissions to that role. So all I have to do now is that when I come into a team, I have to assign him a role and all the permissions is moved to that user. And when I move to a different team, just remove that role, right? Whatever that is being assigned will be taken off and reassign a new role and what new permissions will be added for that, right? Even simpler example you can see is the Linux sudo permission, right? What I can do, I can make a user administrator just by assigning the sudo role for him. So he'll be able to do all the installation and everything. And once he is completed, I can remove that permission out there, right? So that was a process of the previously they had to give someone the access to the root user and password. Then they were able to do. Then we had to come back and make modifications to the password, change it. It was a big nightmare, right? When you have a role-based access control, it becomes easier as well to track what has been going on, right? So what is the role being done out there? All those things can be taken out. Hope it's correct. I know you understood what happened.
Yes, I understood. Thank you.
Welcome. So any other questions, guys, before me further? Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Right. So next slide is unauthorized access.
Karthik, one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. For the DDoS attack, nowadays servers have by default, ports have by default that they don't reply. They don't reject. They directly drop the packet.
Correct.
So in this situation, when even if you have millions of packets or millions of attempts being made on
Correct.
in a single second or a single minute, how does it, like, when it is dropping all the packets, how does it take up all the resources? How does it slow down the server?
So usually what is going to slow down the server, because even for that, say for instance, any action that is happening out there, some kind of a CPU resource is going to be utilized. Correct. Some kind of a CPU resource is going to be utilized. Usually what happens is that when you have we are nowadays, let's say the one device that is going to face all this DDoS attack is not going to be the server itself. It is going to be the firewall that is going to face all the brunt, because that has been kept aside. The costing of the server, usually it goes on, costing of firewall, it goes on the bandwidth capacity, right? And the feature capacity. Most of the time, a particular model of the firewall will have multiple variants. The only thing that is changing is what is the bandwidth it can, handle. So usually something will have 100 Mbps. It will be the lowest, cheaper firewall with all the same features. Only thing is that it cannot handle too much data. Anything more than 100 Mbps of data, even though it is dropping all the packets, it will crash. It can't process it. Okay. At the same time, it goes further up and up. You can get up to 20 Gbps. I've seen about 10 Gbps, and 20 Gbps should also be there. But 10 Gbps, meaning 10 GB of data hitting the firewall at every second, it is able to manage that much information. Meaning that is happening via fiber optic and process like that, right? So getting for us someone to do that process is going to be difficult, getting to that much. Me generating, even though millions of packets may be there, but does it reach 10 Gbps of packet size for it to handle and process? So that is that. But there are different attack vectors that happens. One more thing we can do is that, let's say a server has a set number of connections it can handle, right? One of the main reasons there is a load balancer which will divide it among many different services is that there is a limitation to concurrent client connections that a server can support. Depending on the hardware and things, it changes, but again, there's a limit. So if I start sending requests in such a way that is a new request happening to the server after a certain point of time, even though it has not reached 10 Gbps, but it is opening a connection waiting for them to send new packets, it will stop dropping new connections. Anyone requesting for that, because it's already held up with, right? Let's say if there's a bus, there are about 100 people you can sit, 100 people come inside, right? And anyone coming else will be dropped. That will, we cannot take it. Similarly, in this, number of connections is going to be there as well, right? So there is, when you go DDoS, there is again quite a few variations of DDoS that could occur. So when a client requests, can you do DDoS and check? There's a quite number of activities we do to check for the DDoS. We were able to compromise one of the servers in Middle East once. That was actually behind a DDoS protection, appliance actually, from one of the major DDoS protection. They are one of the largest companies in cybersecurity, but they had not configured it. It was not, the tool was not capable. The engineer was supposed to configure it, did not configure it properly, right? And one more time, everything was, is immaculate. It was, even they were able to manage huge load as well, right? Because they thought, as a company, we should not allow, right? This should not occur out there. They had a lot of planning for protection, DDoS. So in that situation, what happened was, in US, there's a particular brand CCTV, IP based CCTV camera, right? So meaning where you can have this IP based CCTV camera connected to your Wi-Fi. Through your Wi-Fi, you can, anywhere in the world, you can see what's happening in your house. That option is there. And this particular CCTV camera had a vulnerability, right? So now there are millions of the CCTV camera in US because predominantly people use it for monitoring the garage, their house garage and things or front and things and all. So they took over these millions of CCTV, IP-based CCTV cameras, and they used it. See, it's internet based, right? So it is somewhere it is able to run a ping command out there. So now that millions of devices were used to send a ping, flood pings to a particular server, even though there was so much limitation, it compromised completely. Right. And DDoS can also be used for where you're going to attack is it makes more sense, right? Rather than DNS is one service where you can get how to reach a particular server, right? If the DNS server goes down, you can prevent users from accessing the website also. So you can do a DDoS attack on DNS server also, rather than doing it on your server. So again, it changes based on that. So we can only provide certain amount of protection against DDoS. 100% security for DDoS is not going to happen, mainly because the packets that you're receiving are all legitimate packets. Only thing is that we are getting more of them for us to handle it. Right. So that is how it goes. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Great. So let's continue. So what do you mean by an unauthorized access? So from a web application perspective, when we look at things, unauthorized access is something a bread and butter for a pen tester in real time today. Main reason is a lot of the other things can be identified using a scanner. There are very critical attack vectors like XSS, SQL injection things, but there are scanners that can understand that human intervention is not required. A ethical hacker is not required, but an authorization scan, that cannot be done that effectively. It has to be done by user itself. So let's say there's an admin page that can only be accessed by a manager. Anyone else who can access it and use that page will be called as an unauthorized access, right? And a lot of people will think a lot of the attacks that is happening in real time in organizations are done by an hacker from an external source. That is not the case, right? Most of the attacks that we see is going to be from a company user itself. Think about uh, people, if you know Formula One, Ferrari, they have a Formula One team. And an engineer, what he did was they had a very strict policy, right? No one can bring pen drive and things and all. So what he did, that the engineer was every day he took 3 to 4 pages of the technology printout and kept it in his bag and walked out every day, right? And every day it is 4 pages at a time, right? And 4 pages of confidential data, and that happened for 40 days. And finally, they never got to know. When he moved to a different team, there he was using there, someone leaked that information, right? But the Ferrari never got to know that that happened in their application, right? That is an unauthorized access. Internally, companies will a lot of time people will bring their pen drive and walk out, right? That is how
Normally,
it
when
goes.
you connect a dongle or a removable device, it comes up as an IP address, right? Did the network security not find out?
If you're having a SOC enabled network where there is an only then you will get to know about that, right? Otherwise, only best thing you can do is that you can physically take a laptop and configure the laptop not to allow pen drives out there, right? And still, there is a lot of other ways people can try to get information, right? So it is one of the main reasons why people are moving towards work from office again rather than from work from home is that it is not possible it is not possible to prevent users from recording their screen from their mobile, right? That information, whatever is there, the code can be copied, they can copy the confidential information and all those things, right? When you're working in an organization, there are CCTV cameras and they can monitor that. That's that. So why is that hackers are there and what is their motivation for hacking? One of the main motivations for hacking is always financial gain, right? The amount of money they can make is very high. There are a lot of documentaries on YouTube. You can see in certain locations, certain Asian cities are meant for scamming itself. They do scams globally, and you can see that there's one of the videos where they'll show this entire village. You can see all the houses, big houses out here. This had started only after they started came into scams, right? Online scams and things. Because that is the amount of money they get, right? And even in the city where I come from, Bangalore, recently, a city level senior most cop was defrauded for, he ended up giving up his financial information and he lost quite a bit of money on that, right? So they can be that much professional out there. So mainly is for financial gains that we see, and recently we have seen a bit more in activists, right? So what they do is that they hack websites and they put their messages on the public facing websites. And we have seen previously Shell petrol bunk or any petroleum company websites, people who are environmental activities would end up hacking them and start posting photos where oil spills have killed ecosystems and things like that, information. And we also seen the increase is because of Ukraine and Russia war, and we have seen each other come, activists on both the side attacking the each other public facing websites for that. That is there. Espionage is something very common. It is there. A lot of your personal data is been, right. Intellectual property is going to be on your system, right, on the servers that are there. And if you think, like Americans have fighter jet, F-35 and F-32, and Chinese are also having a similar one, right? Long time back, uh, Boeing and the Lockheed Martin websites were hacked for where it had blueprints for this, you know, fighters out there. So that's one of the reasons why it look more. That is the thing, and it has happens a lot, right? So we have seen perfume companies or makeup companies trying to steal formula from the competitors. What is that they're doing out there? We'll see a lot of times, right? Because these intellectual property can be worth millions or even billions in some situations, right? And personal revenge also, we'll see a lot of people, being in bad relations, getting out, or they want to harm someone, so they can use, right? So they can record, if let's say someone is able to hack your laptop, you know, or your mobile phone, and they can access your camera in that, right? So they can do a lot. They can take a lot of your personal information and post it online. All those things can be done because what the motive behind is personal living, right? It has happened a lot of time where there are a fallen out. So some person would hack the other person's laptop and start recording, right? So we usually take our laptop wherever we are going, in your bedroom and kitchen, the living area and everything. And so what we're there, it's there. There's no way to stop. It is always advisable to have some kind of sticker for your tablets, for your mobile phones and laptops to close when it's not required. So that is what personal revenge is. And the most important one is going to be the national security, right? Because every country will have an ethical, not ethical, they are going to have a hacking team, right? So they will be complete freedom is going to be given of them. Their job is to hack other countries' infrastructure, right? So they can hack other countries' nuclear power plants. They can hack other countries' electric grid, the SCADA system, you can say, utility completely, right? Water, electricity, and other things that is going to be there. If, let's say, during the time of war or anything, if I can completely shut down a city's power supply, because the everything is going to be managed on computers for allowing and things like that. if I completely shut down, the chaos is going to be in a city is going to be very high, because without electricity, everything is going to shut down. You can't withdraw money, you can't purchase anything, all those things will happen, right? And it happened in a similar situation, but not from an electric grid perspective. We have seen Iranian nuclear plant being attacked by a virus called as a Stuxnet, right? So it prevented them from um, refining the uranium for weapons grade or things like that. So those are the things. Think about what could be the impact if I'm able to attack a live nuclear power plant which is there, and a situation like Chernobyl is not going to be far from it, right? So that is a other thing. So that is the reasons why. So the main reason is always going to be financial gain. That's the main thing, right? And who are these bad actors? As I told, nation state now we spoke about individuals and organized crime. The big attacks nowadays, what we see, big banks getting hacked and losing money of there, it is no longer an individual or capacity, right? When hacking as I started, you could see a lot of stories that one individual was able to get into an CIA, that was able to get into this company, was able to break into that part. But nowadays we don't see. Main reason is organized crime has got into cybersecurity as well. They will have their own set of pen testers and they focus on it. All right. They can try to compromise and all those things can be done by them. So they will have their own team. They will, just like a normal IT team, they will have them as well, right? There will be a team lead, they'll be specialized for hacking Windows Server, they'll be specialized for hacking Linux Server, then they'll be specialized for who can write virus and backdoors, they'll be specialist for hacking web applications. So depending on the situation of the target, they're going to hire and forget the hire those security specialists out there who can do that activity, right? That is the main part of this part, right? So how do we protect, right? So how do we protect us from these types of attack, right? Because you may be looking at things and see this is quite overwhelming. So how do I approach, so it can happen anytime, anywhere. We don't know about that. So how do we, process your control? This is not going to happen. There's no silver bullet or one activity you could do, right? Where no one can affect you, right? So because one thing, if you have to go do one activity, probably is to delete your data and close everything and go. So when you don't have anything, no one can steal anything, right? That's the point. But that is not the solution out there. So here there are multiple steps, right? You need to employ correct set of cybersecurity tools, right? You might have a very good firewall that is like that, but process is also important, right? So a firewall could be there. If you're not properly configured it will not going to be there. So proper configuration is proper process management of this firewall. At the same time, if you take any major breaches these days, it is the human factor, right? The human factor. It is that human who is actually letting someone inside the organization, right? It is the same human who is inserting some kind of an clicking on a phishing mail, or it is the same human who is not properly coding the web application or not properly configuring the Linux server. So training these people to provide security is very, very important, right? And BCDR solution also, backup recovery and disaster recovery solutions is very much important. Security, if someone tells security, they can give 100% security, it is then 100% lie, right? If you take go speak to any security expert, they'll tell you that 100% security is impossible. People will always find a way to hack your system. If they want to hack, they will always find a way. So only thing we can do is to prepare it for us, to make things really difficult for hackers to compromise, one, and prepare for the attack out there, right? So if some hacker is able to delete your data, how fast you can get back to the business? How can you recover yourself? So for instance, one of the recently we did one. It's not recent. Let's say about 2 years back. Uh, there was a very well-known hotel in a particular city in India. They got hacked by a ransomware, so they lost all the data. Everything got encrypted. Luckily, they had a daily backup plan. So they were able to they lost only 1 days of data and they were able to recover it. Right. So they had planned for that and the loss of data was very limited. Right. Because they came to us because when they got hacked for the second time. So they told we don't know what is happening and this is what is going on. So then we went and did the scan and assessment. Then we got to see there's a point for where the hacker was coming because they were using a vulnerable Windows server through which they were coming in. So, but luckily they had a backup out there. They were able to get back to the business only in a couple of hours, right? So that if that has not been done, they would have lost all the data, right? It's a big hotel, and it is one of the luxury hotels as well. So again, having information lost in such a way, this could also lead to a lot of clients not coming back to their hotels after that. That is there. And assessment also, finally, we should know all of our things are working on, right? Cybersecurity is ever evolving and the things are going in a very different way, right? In one of the sessions, we'll also talk about how AI is going to be used in cybersecurity, how it is, gaining traction. We are seeing AI in other factors, but silent work is going on in AI in cybersecurity as well. There. So initially, what used to happen is there was physical theft. People used to come to office, grab laptops or servers and get away with them. So in order to overcome that, then people started doing denial of service attacks. Then they started pushing towards email based attacks, right? Where sending a mail and things and all, they could get access to certain things. Right. So then again, malwares came into play. And then again, malwares, they started using botnet attacks, compromise systems somewhere else and using that machine to attack your organization. That was that. And nowadays we are seeing a lot of social attacks, right? Social engineering attacks. People post a lot of information about themselves on social media, and we can use that to craft phishing attacks or email attacks much more better. Uh, that is how it's going to be, right? So let's say if you're looking at some particular person, if you go through their Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, they would always post something that out there, right? At home, they'll put a geotag where they're located at. They'll put up their happy birthday post out there, and they'll tell what are sometimes they might even stand in front of their house and take a photographs where you can see their house number, and probably we can geotag where exactly they are there. And they would post, their family members' birthdays as well. So now I'm getting quite a big list out here, right? How many of you will have a password which is going to contain few characters from your loved ones? The numbers in that password is going to be related to their birthday or important days out there. There are tools that out there which I can, when I put all this information, it will give me a set number of possible passwords, right? That can be used by us. So that is also been gaining. And recently, what we are seeing is AI assisted attacks, right? The lot of, for doing all the previous attack, what is required? It requires you are a cybersecurity engineer, right? Understand how an attack is taking place and do that attack for, that is how expert is required for you to do a cyber attack. Nowadays, just like your AI is being used for researching contents, writing essays for you, and doing a lot of other things, AIs can also be used for doing pen testing as well, right? The hacking also can be done in some cases, right? So this is what we see, right? All you don't have to do the process. And this is not something which is in works. Only recently when there has been AI, it has been quite for some time at a military level, right? For instance, let's say the soldiers maybe going to enemy territory and they find network devices out there. Do you think get best way to get that information, right? They want to know how exactly it is they will not be able to do it. Why? The main reason is the soldiers who are going to be there are trained in not in cybersecurity but in physical, how to shoot, how to attack, and how to capture people out there. That is what they've been trained in. And you cannot train them to be hackers out there, right? What if there could be an AI based tool, they can use it to do that process, right? That has been there for some time. But nowadays, with the more capable AI tools and things, it can be, it will not be far. It is already being used to certain level, but you will see AI is going to be play a significant role in cybersecurity in days to come, right? It would be, right now there's not much information, but probably from 2026 you will see a lot more coming up, right? Nowadays we are seeing AI in scanning. It is only used for removing unnecessary data out of it. It is not doing attacks from their perspective, because here there's a lot of ethics perspective, right? So it is going to decide what to hack automatically that you don't want to be. He should take the decision, right? So let's say there is a AI based fighter plane that is there, laced with bombs and other things. Who is going to take the decision to drop the bomb? The AI is going to take, or a human need to take that, right? So there's a lot of dilemma when it comes to AI in cybersecurity, right? So as we saw the different cyber threats, the companies have also moved towards solutions for that aspect, right? When people started stealing, they started locking up the servers and things, and they started having system level firewalls was in play, antivirus for malware type of attack, right? Then again, penetration testing, SOC, and security assessment testing, all those things are going to be done by us out there, right? SOC is basically, we are distributing. What happened was, as more and more protection is there, people, attackers start moving to different locations where they can get access, right? So especially in a banking sector, when we recently worked on one of the banks in southern India, they are not a major bank, right? But meaning in them, they don't have thousands of employees working for them, but they have in somewhere in hundreds, right? So I think they had about 700 laptops that has been given for the employees out there. And one of the things what could happen was their infrastructure is super secure. The servers you can't do, and everything. So if there's an administrator also in this network, if he restarts a service or restarts a server, he will have to give reasoning for that. Right? That is how much control they have about that. But in that is what usually happened out there previously. That is the reason why we don't see OS level attacks out there. Web is the only part. But what people started doing was they started attacking the employee laptops out there, via phishing mail and things. And once they get inside the network via those employee laptops, they can try to mitigate. Because what is happening, once you have access to employee laptop, you are inside the network. Because when you connect to the VPN, you're inside the network, and probably if there is no firewall there, it will be quite easy to attack those server directly when you're connected to VPN. So that is the endpoint detection and response and managed detection and response. So now we started monitoring endpoints also, right? So previously you will have laptop, when you connect a pen drive, it will tell pen drive is not allowed. The message is given and then it stops. Now that is not going to happen out there. There will be same second an alert is sent to the security operations center telling that this particular laptop connected a pen drive, right? Which user connected to that. And then that is going to be raised an alert, and that person has to give justification now. There will be an immediate call to that person checking whether it was him or someone else. All those things are there. All right. So the more protection you are giving, the more complex the attack is going to be from attackers. And then again, we have to give more, protection, different ways of protection as well. That is how usually there, right? So where do you get this? So credentials, right? is majority how you compromise, trying to guess someone's password or do brute forcing that is there. And how do you overcome this? Using multi-factor authentication, right? This is a major problem, especially in the banking sector, right? There's an attack called CSRF attack. You will not even know if you're not, careful, that you might have been compromised out there, right? To overcome this multi-factor authentication for any kind of a transaction, you're going to get an OTP from the bank. Only after entering that is going to be there. And phishing is getting mails, that is going to be there. Solution is security awareness training and email filters. One of the reasons nowadays you see organizations don't have their own email servers, they prefer going with Gmail or Microsoft or things like that, is phishing or the spam filters will be very bad when they configure it themselves. They will not be able to distinguish between legitimate mail and a spam mail out there, right? There's a lot of algorithm that goes in the background, and every day they're checking out which are the servers globally, which IPs were used for hacking, and they're going to any mail coming from those IPs will also be rejected. That cannot be done. The threat intelligence cannot be done by a normal organization. That is the reason why we move towards an enterprise solution, Google Suite or Microsoft Suite for providing us with the mail services. Exploit is going to be very rare because unless until you patch your system, you are going to be attacked, right? If you are going to patch, that is going to be secured out there. So that happens very rare. The chances happening is very less as well. So credential bypass is one major problem, right? That is that, right? So why?
Karthik,
Yeah.
in terms of multi-factor authentication, I know of a situation where Uber, they had faced this. Even with multi-factor authentication, their servers was hacked into. They would hack into the server, you get the multi-factor authentication from the individual drivers, and they were able to get into their accounts and wipe out their earnings.
Correct. Right. So what's the
Any
question?
idea how were they able to do that?
It depends on what kind of a control they were having out there. Multi-factor bypass is different, right? So usually, so let's say we always have to look at the ease of usability also compared to security. If you see your credit card, what is your PIN number? It is always going to be 4-character PIN number, right? So what is the possible 10,000, 000 to all the way to 9,999? So there are 10,000 possible out there. If I just increase by one number, 5 digits, right, it will go up to 1 lakh or 100,000 possibilities. But still they will stick with the 10,000, right, 4-character PIN number. The main reason is that they tried out, they did a study, and they got to know that when they use PIN number which is more than 4-character, people will forget that PIN number. So what they will do, they will write it in a piece of paper and keep it in their purse along with the card. So even though technically it provided better security, if someone steals the wallet, they have access to the card and the PIN number as well, right? In a similar situation, what happens is that when you're having an OTP, right? If you see in the early stage OTPs, you will get a 3-digit OTP. Nowadays, you'll get a 6-digit OTP. What happens is that, let's say if you're having a 3-digit OTP, what is the maximum possible? 1,000, right? From 00 to 999. I can fake send a request to the server using OTP, request more than 100 of them, and one of them will crack. Right. So that can also be done by us. And there's also something called as a response manipulation also, irrespective of what your OTP is, a one-time password MF is, I can manipulate the response coming back from the server in such a way that it will allow me to that part. But I don't know about this attack. So this is usually what an multi-factor authentication bypass usually works like. Either you're going to manipulate the response or you're going to do brute forcing of it. Right. So that is the captcha can also be bypassed in a similar scenario. Right. Again, it depends on how it is configured at the other end. Right. So in order to prevent brute force attacks at the OTP level, they're using 6 character, and sometimes nowadays you see also 8 characters, right? Because human mind remember four number digits better, right? So that's why if you remember number of phone numbers you remember is going to be for little people, few people in your family members you might remember. Even those numbers you see, you will remember 4, 4, and 2, right? The chances, very few people you'll see they'll tell first 5 numbers and this remaining 5 numbers of a mobile. They always tell some number 5499, 5469, 23. So they always go with that part. So that is why you see 8 character, 33 or 44 level of OTPs. Nothing more that is going to work. That, right? And people think biometrics cannot be broken because that is there. Probably biometrics is one of the unsecured part. And one more problem with biometrics is that if it is not properly implemented, let's say someone hacked into your password. So how do you secure? You change your password, right? Someone hacks your biometric. They get an access to your fingerprint. Can you change your fingerprint? Right? Can you change your face? So that is there. So at the same time, at the end of the day, there is some decision mechanism that is happening in the background. Biometrics does not have to be 100% accurate. Like password has to match everything. Biometrics, it is there because you change your face, change your palms, change. It is not exactly the same thing, right? You're tired, your face is down. The way you look is different when you are fresh. The same time in a fingerprint, you could have a cut or you played a lot in the water. You may be washing vessels and everything. Your fingerprint, the way, the distance between the that fingerprint is going to vary. So it does not have to match always 100%, right? So that is the main problem. So multi-factor is, you have to see where exactly is that. No.
They did not bypass the multi-factor authentication. They actually used it to get access to the individual driver's account. They, I don't know how, but they had access to the server on Uber's side, but they did not have access to the individual driver's account. And in order to
So
get that access,
probably that would be a bit more from an IDOR perspective, direct object response perspective. What would have happened is usually when there's some kind of an attack vector is happening out there, there will be a reference, right? Let's say if when you log into your bank account, how does bank know that is your account or not, right? So they use the some kind of an ID perspective for you compared to others. So let's say I have logged in, my ID is 1000 and your ID is 1001. So if there is no security mechanism in play, right? So what they will do is that I can change my request account number from 1000 to 1001 and see the banking information out there. At that time, it will get displayed, right? If there's no security check is not confirmed at the background, whether Karthik is having access to account number 1001. If that is not done, I will be able to look into that. So something like that would have been there. And for that to work successfully, they would have needed the OTP from the driver. So they would have gone out there as well. So it changes because we cannot tell accurately how exactly it would have occurred. We have to look at the threat trip. What is the process that is, because you have to understand the application, how the process is moving from one, how the application is processing the request, what calculation is happening, what database it is connecting, what decision is making, what entities or objects are used for making the decision. All those comes into play. Right? That is why when I am pen testing any device, any website, there is usually in half an hour or 45 minutes communication with the developers where we talk about how the application is processing, what are the functionalities of it, and how it is behaving. So based on that, I plan my attack vector of that. Right. But a lot of times, right? So let's come back to the main lecture. But why, right? So why is that people want to hack is 95% is financial and things, other things are there. In the year 2022, it was found that $10.3 billion was lost during cybersecurity attacks, right? All throughout the world. This will be not a correct number because this is the reported numbers. A lot of times, a lot of crimes don't get reported, and there is no accurate way of knowing also. And again, if you see from a trust factor business loss because of cybersecurity, again, this number is not going to be accurate as right. It will be much more further. Especially banks or one things will never disclose cyber attacks on them. Main thing is they are exempted for a very specific reason. Let's say a few years back in India, there was a scare that a particular big bank was going under loss and is going to shut down in few days, right? So it caused a panic and people rushed to the nearby ATM machines and withdrew everything, right? They literally struggled because of that, because it was not a, it was just a rumor just spread for no reason at all, right? That is the thing. So in a similar way, if the banks are hacked and that information gets out, people may not trust to put money in their bank, right? They usually get that if people lose money on bank using cyber fraud, they do repay that money in some cases. One of my friend got back 4,000 pounds, but he was had to prove that he was not there in that location. Since he was able to prove, he was able to get that back, right? So that is there. So, but how do we go about that? How do we go about what are the different security stages of cybersecurity are supposed to do, right? First and foremost is from an fundamental cybersecurity. Make sure you have administrative security, endpoint protection, firewall is there. All those things has to be done out there. So this is the first stage. And second is going to be policies and awareness. Make sure there's a regular cybersecurity assessment. Your employees are trained about cybersecurity and also are talking about phishing attack exercise as well, right? Training about is not just about how to use email and everything. We should also train employee to not to allow anyone. So usually someone will come, they'll swipe their card and someone else will enter in the same thing as well, right? They'll be right behind. So this person opens the door, get inside. They will hold the door and get inside as well, right? So you should have that policy in the organization not to open it. I get a lot of, you know, hate when I do that. When I in the office I get go in, I swipe. I'll ask the other people to. I'll close the door in front of them on their face. I'll ask them to swipe and come inside. Unless until I know that person is working with me and that is going to be the, if I don't know that person, that's not going to happen on that, right? We have to train that. In pen testing, in red teaming, one of my colleagues in a previous company, he was able to get inside a bank and he was able to get inside the main server room as well and got access to the server as well, right? And they got to know, they came up with all the security guard with guns and everything. Then finally he told, I've been authorized to do that. Please speak to your national level manager, cybersecurity. He will tell you about this, right? No one in the bank knew that someone has come for that. So that's a physical breach that was supposed to be done, right? So I'm not involved in that. I don't have that social engineering capabilities out there, right? So in stage 3 is basically about configuring management, right? Patch management. Uh, since exactly nowadays you will have bring your own device, you're getting your mobile phones in the organization and things and all. So you have to take care of that, right? So are the servers patched regularly? That has to be taken as well. All those things is going to be there, right? Fourth and fifth stage, what we see is on the expensive side. Small and medium sized organizations, they don't do this much, right? So because incident response is basically thinking about what will happen when an attack is successful, we lost all the data, what is supposed to be do out there. A preset plan is going to be there, right? So especially let's say in your organization, you may be working, they will have fire drills once in a month or once in a quarter, right? What is supposed to do? There is going to be a pre-plan out there, what is how it's supposed to do, and they're going to train you as well. So that is also an incident response, right? The incident is fire incident for that. And similarly, for a breach that is going to be there, planning has to be done, training has to be given, and again, a testing also has to be done. Whether are we doing right or wrong, and that is going to be there. And finally, is SOC. Then you're going to look at all the threats that is coming up, right? So this is basically SOC is some place is a part of cybersecurity where it is quite a relaxed job. You're getting an attack vector on the screen and that will be assigned to you. You have to cross check whether that is a legitimate attack or not. And AI is somewhere we are going to look from your perspective, right? Where the reporting of unwanted behavior, even though it is not an alert, it will still report it as alert, false positive. So how to remove false positive? We are going to look in SOC for sure, right? So main thing here is that why is that breach is happening higher, right? The main thing here is business priorities. They like to invest more in other components of the business rather than implementing on security. Second thing is security at scale is very difficult. Right? Let's say some companies start off as a small, they have security in place, and as they grow, they will not be able to adapt or increase the cybersecurity as they grow with the organization, right? And lack of knowledge and targeted attacks. So a lot of times they don't know what is supposed to be, then they need security or not, and things and all. We helped a company which lost more than $50,000 somewhere in the first half an hour of being launched, right? It was an arcade based game website online, and they used cryptocurrency for doing it. Uh, the way we help them is we told them you have to rewrite the entire application, right? The entire website has to be rewritten because entire thing, it is no way, there's no fix. The design was such a way that it has to be rewritten, right? So that happened because they didn't have any knowledge. They did not consult anyone from a cybersecurity team to help them out with that, right? That is the and targeted attacks. What we see much more huge number of times. A lot of times we'll get people come out. Okay, we want to do pen testing and things for the website. Is after they get breached, right? After they have lost the data and things, that time they will take it seriously. Right? At that time, there's a very good budget. And if you see a lot of cybersecurity memes, that is how it's going to be, right? So before breach, the money, they don't give any money, and after breach, there's going to be money flying everywhere, right? So that is that. So, but nowadays, uh, the increase in is there in cybersecurity because compliance requirements are much higher. You have to get pen tested and things like that. Yeah. One of the main problems is lack of knowledge. Is also is security specialist is not going to be easy to hold on to them. First of all, finding a security specialist is difficult, and then again holding on to them is very difficult. Uh, it is a very niche market. Uh, since it is it is a simple subject, but it is not an easy subject, right? So it requires a lot of decision making, process oriented, and things. You need to have much more better understanding how certain thing is working and why certain thing is working, right? So because of this, you don't find too many people taking this up, and even if they are take up, they are going to be in high demand because of that, right? And since compliance requirements are kicking in, right? Anyone storing any kind of a data, there's a minimum bare amount of security they have to give for them to be there. Either it is going to be a mandatory from the government perspective, the country governments will tell this is what is required out there, or certain times clients will tell if you don't have say basic security, we will not do business with your organization, right? So that is one of the reasons. Because of that, there's a sudden increase in cybersecurity market growth, right? uh, and this is absolutely right, right? It is keeps on going and going higher and higher. And even today, right, we are still struggling to get good quality cybersecurity engineers. There are a lot more cybersecurity engineers, uh, but you still don't find, right? In 3 years back, we did a recruitment drive, and I was in a small, not small, one of the major metropolitan cities in India, in Chennai. We ended up interviewing about 20-25% of the city's cybersecurity personnel for a job role. You know, that is how less it is. A big city, a lot of IT workers, and probably more than a million IT workers are there. But still, when you take up cybersecurity professionals, and that is so less. And again, if you take quality uh, cybersecurity professionals in that small pool, it is even further less, right? So that is why we see, we think it is going to be a huge demand, right? Now, at the same time, the attacks have gone up significantly, right? So it is quite easy requirement for an entry level attacker to hack, right? So let's look at, we're coming down to the tail end of the session. But what are the different job openings that are present out there? Right. Uh, Initial jobs with a lot of advanced opportunities going to be digital forensic analytics and investigation. Whenever there is an incident, someone has to come in like a cyber crime. You will see like CSI thing, but for a cyber sector, cyber perspective. The way they check a cyber attack is going to be different. They're looking at a lot of logs. If there is an involvement of an event, we'll try to switch off the system, not shut down, power cut for that. Penetration testing and network penetration testers is one more major, right? So here, application pen tester are both a bit similar, but one is more towards infrastructure and one is more towards application security. That is website that is there. Security Operations Center is analyst who is working on that. I think probably from an technical perspective, this is bit more easier to start up with, right? But again, the payment in the pay what you're getting as the SOC analysis is bit less, right? In some cases, in India, I've seen some companies providing even less below the standard for SOC analyst out there, right? Cyber defenders, basically, this is firewall engineers, IDPS engineers who are configuring firewall at the enterprise level for them. This is actually one of the highly paid openings I've seen, depending on the experience. And the certifications here is also very expensive. Cisco has CCIE, I think it comes around $2,500 for a single attempt, right? And that is a 2 level. When you have to clear the theory, then there's an 8-hour practical exam that is there. And only about 10,000 people are there in the world for security out there. Right. Security architects, secure dogs, secure they work at an enterprise level, looking at the application from a design perspective and tell where exactly the security is going to be there. So they will be someone who is having multi-security discipline understanding of it, right? Malware analysts, similar to SOC analysts, they usually work on an enterprise um, email teams where they will get attachments and they'll cross check whether it's vulnerable or not and things like that. Secure development, right? Secure software development managers are normal development managers who has security knowledge. So they can implement security at the coding level itself. That is what they do. And then finally, CISOs and technical directors. These are the top tier people who work at an enterprise level, looking at they are more focused on building teams and getting the process at an enterprise level. All, let's say, hundreds of thousands of people are there. What is the process they have to follow? They'll work more on that time. All right. And one role, what we are seeing is DevSecOps, that is the dark horse, and we are seeing significant high in hiring process for this, right? And actually, it is changing the job market altogether. Application testers, penetration testers, and software development managers are all getting combined into a single role for DevOps, DevSecOps. They want a pen tester who has knowledge in a development environment as well, and who can manage CI/CD pipeline as well. That is what is happening. If you are already working on CI/CD pipeline, they want you to have security knowledge and gain knowledge in pen testing as well. All right. So because of this is sorry, right, and this is where there's a huge demand out there, right? And this is the normal average salary we are looking at, right? For pen testers, in a lot of times, even for a fresher with 1 or 2 years experience, if the skill set is really good, they can demand a much more higher salary. This is a base average what we are seeing. But a normal size, what I'm looking at in the US, we are somewhere looking at $150,000 for a DevSecOps engineer, right? Someone who's really good understanding what happens out there and go with that part, right? So the skill shortage is always going to be there and it is going to increase more, right? And what they're telling 32% of security ministry, it takes 6 months or more to find a qualified candidate for an open position is actually true. And I've struggled because of that. Right. Yeah, Menon, please go ahead.
Yeah. So now uh, the the biggest question most of our students have in their mind. So is it a good idea for a newcomers in IT background or freshers to pursue their career for DevSecOps? What will be the success rate and what will be the learning curve?
Yeah. Mm, so this one I spoke at the earlier time before that, but this is something we'll redo it now. Let's say if we'll take it from an developer role perspective, and then there's also question for an operations role perspective. Operations meaning administrator, Linux management, DevOps, DevSecOps, and other things, and developer perspective. Uh, Learning curve, if you are yet to start, I would suggest to go with DevSecOps because even though security is a bit complicated, it you can, if you put in an effort, it takes less time to get an expert in that, right? But if you take as a development perspective, unless until if you want, if you're real, depends on how serious you are, it will take more time to get mastery in programming and things like that. Then again, we have to decide, right? You have to decide whether you want to go to front end programming or back end programming. Then again, you have to decide on multiple programming languages. If you're a fresher, you cannot tell I will only go with Python and let me look for only Python based jobs. You might have to learn a couple of them as well, right? That is also going to be there. If you ask me, if you're a developer, do DevOps, DevSecOps also because it will add much more uh, weightage to your resume. There almost everyone is going to be a developer out there. It is bit more, uh, especially for instance, let's say how many, how long you have seen very high paid PHP developers, right? You don't see that much often, mainly because a majority of developers, web application developers, will have PHP skill set. So there is no shortage of it. So don't get paid much higher out there, right? And Python needs again reaching a stagnation because everyone is learning Python and things like that, right? That is there. So if you can combine both DevOps, DevSecOps, and development, it is good. But if you're starting on with something, I would suggest going with DevOps and DevSecOps, mainly because there's a lot of basic stuffs that you learn in development also will be there in DevSec or DevOps also. All right. So how to set up a server, how do you run an application and things and all. The coding part will not be there, but rest everything will be there. Right. Hope that answered, man. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So if you allow me, uh, so in your terms, DevOps is like a learning the infrastructure or understanding if you are building some house, then you need to understand about the architecture of that house, and
Correct.
DevSecOps is how to secure the house, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
True.